The baby is crying. Both eyes scrunched, mouth wide, full body commitment. The parent starts moving, and then, between one sob and the next, the baby opens one eye, not both. One. A single reconnaissance sweep of the room, executed with the precision of a surveillance camera checking its feed. Are they coming? The eye locates the parent mid-stride. Assessment complete. The eye closes. The crying resumes at full volume, uninterrupted, as if the pause never happened. That 2-second gap between the fake sobs was not a break in the performance. It was the most neurologically complex event that brain has ever produced. In that window, the prefrontal cortex simultaneously inhibited the active motor program, performed environmental surveillance, assessed the social target's response, and reinitiated the performance. 4 executive operations in sequence, under 2 seconds, in a brain that cannot yet form a complete sentence. Most adults cannot execute that level of multitasking deliberately. The baby did it automatically, effortlessly, while pretending to be in distress. Every parent celebrates the first word. The first step gets a video. The first food gets a photograph. Nobody celebrates the first fake cry, even though it is cognitively harder than all 3 combined. Producing a genuine word requires motor cortex activation to control the vocal apparatus. Producing a first step requires cerebellar motor coordination. Both are impressive. But producing a fake cry requires the prefrontal cortex to simultaneously run 4 operations that most neuroscientists consider proxy markers for higher-order consciousness: motor inhibition, emotional decoupling, audience monitoring, and strategic signal production. Feeling an emotion is automatic, subcortical, effortless, involuntary. Faking an emotion requires the brain to distinguish between "I feel something" and "I can make you think I feel something." That partition between experience and performance is a cognitive achievement most species never reach in their entire evolutionary history. The baby who fake cries has crossed a threshold that separates human social cognition from virtually everything else alive. The remote control metaphor is the closest analog to what the baby's brain has accomplished. Without instructions, without language, without a single conscious thought about strategy, the infant brain has reverse-engineered the caregiver's behavioral response pattern and built a prototype device to exploit it. Months of genuine distress data taught the system. This sound, at this volume, with this temporal pattern, produces this response with this probability. The fake cry is the first deployment of that learned contingency. The first time the brain deliberately produces a distress signal that does not correspond to an internal distress state. 4 neural engines power this prototype. The first is the prefrontal executive function surge at 6 to 8 months. During this window, synaptic density and dendritic branching in the dorsolateral and ventromedial prefrontal cortex accelerate dramatically. This is not gradual growth. It is a construction surge, a rapid expansion of the neural infrastructure required for intentional behavior, working memory, and behavioral flexibility. Before this surge, the baby can cry. After this surge, the baby can decide to cry. The difference is the difference between a reflex and a strategy. The second engine is the anterior cingulate cortex and its role in goal monitoring. The ACC tracks the discrepancy between intended outcome and actual outcome in real time. When the baby fake cries, the ACC is monitoring. Is the caregiver moving? How fast? Has the facial expression shifted? Is the target approaching or hesitating? This is not monitoring in the abstract. The ACC adjusts the cry parameters in real time. Volume increases if the response is slower than predicted. Pitch modulates if the target seems unresponsive. Duration extends if the approach stalls. The baby is not repeating a fixed program. The baby is A/B testing its own performance against a live audience, adjusting variables on the fly based on real-time feedback. The third engine is proto-theory of mind. By 6 to 7 months, infants demonstrate implicit understanding that others have mental states that can differ from their own. The fake cry is the behavioral proof. I am not distressed, but I can produce a signal that makes you believe I am distressed. This requires the brain to represent two simultaneous states, its own emotional reality and the target's inferred emotional response, and deliberately create a mismatch between them. This is not deception in the adult sense. It is the cognitive foundation upon which all deception, all diplomacy, all social calibration will eventually be built. The fourth engine is the orbitofrontal cortex and its social reward prediction system. The OFC has been computing expected reward values from hundreds of prior genuine crying episodes, building a probabilistic model. Cry. Caregiver proximity at 94% probability. Cry. Physical comfort at 87%. Cry. Feeding at 62% depending on contextual cues. The fake cry is the first strategic deployment of this learned model. The brain saying, I know the contingency, I can activate it on demand. Not every cry that looks fake is fake. Not every fake cry means the same thing. And getting this distinction wrong matters, because mislabeling genuine distress as manipulation has real consequences for attachment security. 3 categories require different responses. The first is genuine distress with atypical presentation. Some babies cry with dry faces, inconsistent rhythms, or variable intensity not because they are performing, but because individual autonomic variation produces different crying profiles in different infants. The absence of tears does not confirm the absence of distress. Some babies' lacrimal systems develop later. Some have lower volume distress responses. Assuming a cry is fake because it looks different from an idealized distress template risks ignoring genuine need. The second category is true fake crying with reconnaissance behavior. The peek, the grin, the one-eye surveillance, the pause that maps onto a calculation. This is the prefrontal achievement. This is the 4-engine orchestration. It is developmentally positive, cognitively impressive, and does not require intervention beyond the awareness that the brain's social intelligence system has come online. The third category is excessive attention seeking, accompanied by genuine escalation, if not answered. A baby who fakes a cry, receives no response, and then escalates into genuine distress is not running a social experiment. They are running a stress test of the attachment bond, and the genuine distress that follows the ignored fake cry reflects real HPA axis activation triggered by unresponsive contingency. Ignoring this pattern teaches the system, signals do not produce responses. That lesson has consequences that extend beyond the immediate moment. The nuance matters because the parent's response is being data logged by the OFC regardless of the cry category. Every response teaches the brain something about the reliability of its own signaling system and the responsiveness of its primary attachment figure. Extend the timeline, and the remote control transforms into something staggering. The baby who fake cries at 7 months is running the prototype of every strategic social communication they will ever perform. Every single one. The adult who comforts a grieving friend is modulating their emotional display, producing signals of empathy that may not perfectly match their internal state, calibrated to the friend's perceived needs. That is the fake cry's 4-engine system, refined over decades. The professional who negotiates a salary is producing strategic signals designed to create a specific impression in the target's mind. Calculated, audience-aware, performance-monitored. Same system. The parent who maintains composure during a child's tantrum while internally screaming is decoupling experienced emotion from performed emotion. Same partition. The same prefrontal ACC OFC TPJ infrastructure that powered the first fake cry powers the most sophisticated social performances of adult life. The remote control that the baby built at 7 months will be refined, diversified, and sophisticated across years and decades. But the engineering moment, the first prototype, was a 7-month-old peeking through their fingers to check if you were watching. That was not the first lie. It was the first draft of social intelligence, written by a brain that weighs less than 2 pounds but had already figured out the most fundamental principle of human social interaction. Other people's mental states can be influenced by signals that do not correspond to reality. Everything else, diplomacy, negotiation, empathy, social calibration, performance under pressure, is just revision of that first draft. The parent does not need to fix the fake crying. They need to recognize it as a cognitive event and understand that their response is being logged. Responding warmly does not reward manipulation. It teaches the system that social signals produce reliable results, which strengthens secure attachment and reinforces the brain's confidence in its own communicative capacity. Ignoring strategically does not teach independence. It provides a different data point that the OFC will factor into future predictions about whether signaling is worthwhile. Neither response is universally correct. Both are data. What matters is pattern. Mostly warm, mostly responsive, mostly consistent. The OFC does not build its model from a single data point. It builds from thousands. And the model it builds will determine for years whether this person signals freely in relationships or withholds because early data suggested signals do not work. Comment below. When did you first catch your baby fake crying? Describe the peek. Describe the surveillance sweep. Describe the grin when they got caught. Because that was the moment 4 neural engines fired simultaneously for the first time. And you were the first audience the prefrontal cortex ever performed for. Return to the opening. The scrunched eyes, the full volume performance, the one-eye reconnaissance gap. Now see all 4 engines firing at once. Motor cortex, producing the cry, activating the facial muscles, the diaphragm, the vocal apparatus, running the motor program for distress output. A program learned from hundreds of genuine episodes, and now being deployed without the corresponding internal state. Engine 1. Active. Anterior cingulate cortex, monitoring whether it is working, tracking the discrepancy between predicted caregiver response and actual caregiver response in real time, adjusting volume, modulating pitch, extending duration based on the feedback loop. The baby is not producing a fixed signal. They are tuning a live broadcast. Engine 2. Active. Orbitofrontal cortex, predicting the caregiver's next move. Computing the probability of approach based on accumulated data from hundreds of prior trials. Has the caregiver's response latency increased, decreased? Does the caregiver respond differently to this pitch versus that pitch? The OFC is running a prediction model so detailed that the baby's expectations about your behavior may be more accurate than your own conscious self-assessment. Engine 3. Active. Proto-temporoparietal junction, modeling whether the caregiver believes the signal. Representing the other mind's representation of the baby's state. I am not distressed. Does the caregiver think I am distressed? Their approach speed suggests they do. Maintain signal. This is not one behavior. It is a 4-system orchestration that AI researchers working on social cognition in autonomous agents still struggle to replicate with billions of dollars of computational infrastructure. A 7-month-old is running it on neural hardware that weighs less than a kilogram and is powered by breast milk. If someone in your life feels guilty for catching their baby fake crying, send them this. Because their baby just demonstrated emerging prefrontal integration, proto-theory of mind, and real-time social strategy. That was not a lie. It was a first draft of social intelligence. And feeling guilty about catching it is like feeling guilty about witnessing a first word. It is a milestone. It simply does not look like one. The remote control was built from scratch. No manual, no language, no conscious strategy. No teacher showed the baby how to produce a cry without distress. No course trained the prefrontal cortex to suppress genuine emotion and replace it with a calibrated performance. The engineering was entirely autonomous. powered by nothing more than months of data collection, implicit pattern extraction, and the relentless refinement of a brain that does not know it is learning, but cannot stop. It started as a survival reflex. Genuine distress produced a genuine cry. The caregiver responded. The ventral striatum logged the outcome. The OFC noted the contingency. The ACC recorded the response latency. Hundreds of iterations later, the data was sufficient to reverse engineer the mechanism. A specific sound, at a specific volume, with a specific temporal pattern produces caregiver proximity with predictable reliability. The fake cry was not an invention. It was a reverse engineering achievement. The brain discovering the underlying mechanism of a relationship by analyzing its own output data and then reproducing the signal without the corresponding input. That remote control will be refined over decades. It will become the social interface through which this person navigates every relationship, every conversation, every negotiation, every act of comfort and persuasion and strategic self-presentation. The baby who peeked through their fingers at 7 months to check if the audience was responding will become the adult who reads the room before speaking, who adjusts their tone to match the context, who knows instinctively how to signal vulnerability without being consumed by it. Every developmental milestone has a public face and a hidden architecture. The first word is celebrated because it is visible. The first step is celebrated because it is physical. The first fake cry is not celebrated because it looks like manipulation. But underneath the performance is the most complex cognitive event the brain has produced to date. The simultaneous integration of motor control, emotional decoupling, audience monitoring, and predictive social modeling. 4 systems that took millions of years of primate evolution to develop, firing together for the first time in a brain that cannot yet tie its own shoes. The baby who fake cries has not learned to lie. The baby has learned to distinguish between feeling and performing. The cognitive partition that separates human social intelligence from everything else alive. And the parent who caught them peeking was not witnessing deception. They were witnessing the birth of social cognition in real time. The remote control powered on. The first button was pressed. And the world, for the first time, responded not to what the baby felt, but to what the baby chose to signal. That is consciousness. That is agency. That is the beginning of everything.